made a statement earlier this year at one of their big releases, as NVIDIA is the one that's making all those amazing GPUs used for crypto, used for AI, generative AI, and all that other fun processing. But basically comes out and saying that AI agents are going to be the trillion-dollar, next big thing that goes on within AI overall. That trillion-dollar opportunity, essentially. And the interesting thing is, as you're going to see through what we talk about here this afternoon, is looking at agentic AI, looking at different ways agentic AI is working. But also, in one particular tool, I'm seeing on TikTok, social media, people selling templates with regards to agentic AI and using the different tools and capabilities. So people are already looking at different ways to be able to make money. But when we look at what's keeping us up at night with regards to agentic AI, this again, what is old is new again, is the fact that we're going to have issues, vulnerabilities, exploits, attacks coming from the inside as well as coming from the outside. So, for an example, with regards to agentic AI, where you might have a system set up where it's connecting to your different systems, looking at alarms, generating messages and things going out. So, from an agentic AI standpoint, 11 o'clock, you got alarms coming in from a SOC assistant. 1 a.m., an autonomous agent locks users out of production because, safety. 3 in the morning, we get a report that gets sent out, but it's got mistakes in it for the media. And then 5 a.m., you log in to discover your MCP stack has made every decision correctly, but on the wrong data. Now, this is all hypothetical, but this is the potential that we could be exposing to. What we have been seeing is, with regards to Claude Code, is agentic AI coding being used to attack various organizations. We know we're seeing vulnerabilities in regards to the new agentic browsers. We've also got cyber criminal groups using ransomware, surprise, surprise, but now leveraging generative AI with that, looking at the GPT-OSS 20B to generate code as well as messages overall. So we know we're getting the attacks from the inside. We've got attacks coming from the outside. So the question then becomes, who's innovating faster? Is it them or is it us? It's usually Jimmy. So, but that's a different story and presentation. So, real excited that we're both back here.
Yep, my name's Erich Kron. I work with KnowBe4. I'm a CISO Advisor, whatever that means. We do a lot of talks and whatnot. And I've been in the industry since back in the 1990s. First network was Windows 3.1 and Lantastic, if you all remember back in those days. So I've seen a few things. I think I earned the gray hair. But yeah, now we get to go around and talk. Mr. McQuiggan.
Yep, so James McQuiggan, another CISO advisor for KnowBe4. Also, Side Hustle is host of a Simply Secured podcast. It's on the Simply Cyber Media Group, interviewing folks in their different stages in their cybersecurity careers, how they got their challenges, and so forth. And of course, I'm excited to be back here at Secure West Virginia. Any chance to come and hang out with the fine folks that put this conference on is always enjoyable. So, there you go. So, when you got Jimmy in the audience, anything's possible.
The fine folks that put this on, and Jimmy.
And Jimmy. Yeah. No, you're fine. So essentially, with regards to KnowBe4, because it's the marketing slide, because they sent us up here, KnowBe4, of course, is always about the security awareness training, but now there's so much more with real-time coaching, micro-learning, and then, of course, our new AI agents. So there's our marketing slide. We've said our bit. Time to move on. Essentially, my job, Erich's role, is to go around and talk with people about, if it would move, there we go, thank you very much, is to go around and talk with people about the importance of securing their dried grapes. Yeah, it's raising security awareness.
Don't encourage him.
All right, so what I'm really curious, besides the bad dad jokes, I'm curious to know, everybody here that's here right now, where are you in your agentic AI journey? Are we learning and sharing? No? Got a couple? All right.
Yeah.
How about running your own agentic platform? You got your MCP server up running A to A? No? How about people are just curious to know what agentic AI is? And then everybody else that didn't raise their hand?
Yeah.
Don't want to participate. Okay, that's fine.
It's late in the day.
So, yeah, it's late in the day. It's after lunch, trying to keep people awake. So what we're looking at with regards to what we've been seeing with AI, I mean, everybody's using generative AI in some capacity, right? Head nods, yeah? Okay. Well, the interesting thing when we start looking at the law of accelerating returns, who remembers what Moore's law is? Technology doubles every 18 months, right? Okay. The interesting thing when we start looking at Ray Kurzweil, who's a futurist, we start looking at the law of accelerating returns, where the next decade doesn't bring 10 years of progress, the next decade brings 100 years at today's rate. So we are seeing significant advancements very, very quickly, compounded with using AI, along with AIoT, quantum, big data, all that. And essentially, when you look at the chart, they've even had a study that's come out with regards to generative AI doubling its capabilities, not every 18 months like Moore's law, but every 7 months. It's doubling in its capability of providing results and the different tests they put it through. So right now it's every 7 months. That was actually back in March. I would not be surprised we start seeing doubling capabilities every 6 or every 5 months within the next year. So we know that there's a lot of advancements coming. Now when we look at agentic AI, for me I look at it as the fact that agentic AI is going to do what social media did for the internet. We all think back to the 2000s where social media, Eric gets on MySpace. Right?
I had a MySpace.
You had a
so don't
MySpace
give me-
page, yeah. Get on MySpace, and essentially you're looking at, that starts growing. People getting on social media, going through Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all that. Exploded the internet and what everybody was doing with it. Agentic AI is going to make it a lot easier for folks to work with and automate with AI, generative AI, automation, machine learning, all that. And so your agentic AI is going to explode that. And we've been seeing it already when we look back over the last year, a variety of different tools. For me, my agentic AI journey started in January, where I started looking at, or actually December of last year, looking at FlowWise, looking at leveraging that platform, that framework to do, automated tasks, along with leveraging large language models. You get HeyBoss, you get Manus that both do vibe coding. And I built one of the tools that I built early on that I tried doing with Manus, and it just couldn't do it. But HeyBoss, one of the things that we do, Eric and I do on a daily basis, is look at the current events. What's happening? What are the breaches? What are the different attacks, malware groups, things that are happening out there? And then write about it, post it on LinkedIn, that thought leadership process. Well, the fun thing is I would spend a majority of my day looking for stories. So I have an RSS feed. Okay, great. Now I got to go through and find the different stories, see what's more common, popular, then determine that and then write about it. So I used HeyBoss and had it go through all my RSS feeds that I had, determine what were the top stories among all the different, I had like 60 different RSS feeds for cybersecurity stories, figure out which were the more popular ones, more common ones, and then write me a blurb, write me a social media post, and then from there I would take that and rework it. It pretty well took care of white page syndrome for me. And I would take that post and then rework it in and then post it on the LinkedIn. What would take me anywhere from half an hour to an hour, now it took me 10 minutes. So already with agentic AI, with vibe coding, it's allowing me to be a lot more efficient overall. So we start seeing all these different tools coming about, but as I look across everybody, I think what we want to do now is let's just kind of baseline. And so,
Yeah. So agentic and Gen AI, right? When I first started hearing the term agentic, I wasn't exactly sure what that meant. It's a little confusing. It's still kind of been defined a little bit as we go. But looking at the three scopes of AI in general, okay, talking about artificial narrow intelligence, that's kind of like, being very good at one thing, all right? There's been a lot of talk about AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, being basically a human level intelligence, being good at a whole lot of different things. And then there's super intelligence, which is being smarter than us. Now the fact is, a lot of people think, especially those not in the industry or not in tech, think we're somewhere around that AGI part, but the fact is we're still very much planted in the narrow intelligence. And the way that kind of works is this. If you take ChatGPT, which feels very smart, and you tell it to go drive an autonomous car, it can't do it. It's very focused on the things that it's good at as opposed to general things. Now, we are working towards AGI, and eventually I think we're going to get there, but I'll be honest, my personal opinion, I don't think we're going to get to AGI, probably not while I'm still running around on the talking circuit and things like that. It's going to be a little while. It's a bigger deal than a lot of people think it is. Now, that doesn't mean that the narrow intelligence isn't going to feel more and more intelligent as we move along, okay? Now, when it comes to functions of AI, there's a couple things it does, but the key things we probably know most about, or we see the most, are going to be the generative AI piece, where we are creating code in secure code, all those sorts of things, right? This is the GPTs, this is the transformers, this is all of that kind of stuff. But then the agentic, and the big difference here, the thing I want you all to understand is the big difference is with agentic AI, the idea is you give it a goal and it figures out how to accomplish it. Where when you're talking about generative AI, you go into ChatGPT, you're going to ask it a question, it's going to give you an answer, and then you're going to go to the next thing. Then you're going to go to the next thing. Agentic basically, book me a flight to, I don't know, Phoenix, Arizona.
Charleston, South Carolina.
Shut up. I did that one time. I tried to go to the wrong town, and they will never let me live that down. Anyway, but yeah, you ask it something like that, and it figures out how it's going to do that. Well, I'm going to use this tool to go out and do this and do that. That's agentic. Agentic is going to be doing those sorts of things in an autonomous fashion as opposed to GPTs. So that's the main difference there. Now, what could possibly go wrong when you're like, okay, AI bot, here's my credit card number, my login to Delta, et cetera, right? So let's think about that kind of stuff as we're moving through this. Now, the interesting thing about the way GPTs work is they seem smart, but they're actually really stupid. Anyone here feel like they understand how transformers work, right, with prediction models and stuff? It's kind of crazy. So you put your text in there, ask it a question, it breaks it down into tokens or subwords. It turns those into numbers, and then it does a lot of predictive analysis. So when you're getting an answer from a GPT, what you're getting is the prediction that the next word probably follows this word, and then it'll take that, it'll glance at it and go, statistically speaking, what would follow this word? That's why when they hallucinate, they go horribly wrong, right? You end up way down a wrong path. But it's actually all statistics, but it feels super smart to us. It's very interesting. There's a couple of videos on YouTube that are fantastic. If you look out there and you really want to see how these work, it's fascinating how much it does with that predictive analysis and breaking down the words. But it really doesn't do any thinking. That's the beauty of the GPTs. They really aren't thinking things. They're just kind of spewing back information based on statistics, where the agents actually get in and start figuring things out. How am I going to do this? What tools am I going to use? What am I going to leverage, and what has to happen for the end product? So that's where we're going with the agentic stuff. Some of this stuff has memory, some of it doesn't. They're just probability machines. And we all know what can go wrong with probability, especially infinite probability. How many of you recognize where that's from? Come on now.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Okay.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Need to, yeah.
Yeah, not again.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's all right. All right.
So as we go away from the transformers, we start looking at, with regards to agentic AI, and start looking at them as almost as non-human identities with the capabilities that they need to have with whatever functions you're going to have for them inside the organization. Now, we've already been dealing with non-human identities already in IT already with service accounts and so forth. And so as we break it down, you can look at, there's a variety of different NHIs already that's out there. Managing the system accounts, you've got connected devices, IoT devices and so forth. And so you've got those non-human. And for me, I'm almost looking at it as IT will be the next HR, so to speak, when it comes to these NHIs and providing them access that's needed for the agentic AI systems and so forth. But when we break it down, we're looking at efficiency and automation. Agentic AI gives us that ability. It allows them to, they can move faster, they're a lot more accurate, especially in processing things like in the cloud environment, DevOps, and so forth. Scalability, of course, you want anything we do within the business, we want to make sure that we can scale it up and we can deploy thousands of these agents handling either one particular task or a couple of tasks overall. Hopefully some sort of security and compliance that goes into it. One of the things that we look at with regards to agentic AI is making sure that it has only the necessary permissions and access to data that it needs. One of the best things is it's never going to complain that it doesn't have admin privileges, because if you're in IT, you know that that's the one thing your users always want, is have that as much access as possible. And then, of course, hopefully we get the cost savings that come into there as well. If we even look at like a SOC level 1 analyst being able to automate the work that they do, then that levels up that SOC analyst to be level 2 and hopefully save on the costs regarding operations for that particular person. But with regards to the challenges that we got to deal with, we're looking at these proliferation of these NHIs, the integration of the AI tools overall. We're seeing such a huge increase, especially with MCP servers, providing them the unique credentials that they need. The kicker to all of this, though, is with the NHIs, it's difficult for them to do MFA. And so we then are relying on APIs, and we're going to talk about that here in a bit, which leads us to our security risks of with regards to the NHIs. If they've got access to too much stuff, you don't give them enough access, they can limit what they're capable of doing. But we've all heard the term human in the loop, and we need that human oversight with regards to what the agents are going to be doing. We need, especially on like big decisions, there was a story a couple months ago where you had somebody that leveraged agentic AI to optimize the database, their entire database infrastructure they had set up. And so it went through and it optimized it by wiping out the entire database and the backups.
It was way faster that way.
And it was way faster. Now it's optimized. There's no records to worry about. Very efficient. So the question now becomes, do you want to play with AI agents?
Yeah. Now, how many of you have played with that? I know, John, you did.
N8N, anybody?
N8N. Okay, so this is an example of an N8N one that I put together for myself. And one of the things we do a lot is media comment ops, so we respond to like questions from the media and all that. So I have a Google alert set up in my Gmail that tells whenever that happened. Well, I have an agent that goes through, looks at my email, finds out where I am. It has to go through and it basically summarizes the information here. And then because I couldn't get it to format JSON correctly, no matter what frickin' model I used, I also throw it at OpenAI and have it do that. Then I have it update a Google Sheet, go back in and make some changes to the Gmail, the messages themselves, mark them red, add some tags and all this. This is an agent that runs constantly on my machine so that I can see when I've been quoted and I have it now in a spreadsheet. That's a whole lot easier than doing it by hand like we've done in the past. And it's a pretty interesting kind of way that this works, going through this, doing some queries, making some changes. Over here, we're writing to a Google Sheet, and we're making changes in email. So what I did is I circled the places where I think this could possibly go wrong.
That's like all of them, okay. Except the schedule.
Yeah,
trigger.
Except the schedule trigger, that just kind of fires off every hour no matter what, right? But pretty much everything else in here can go horribly damn wrong. And if you think about it, I've had to give this agent access to read all of my email, download it, including attachments, because sometimes it needs to look through those. I've given it access to change the code around, do some JSON, changing here. That's another place that things could be injected if a bad actor gets in there. Writing to a spreadsheet, somebody writes the wrong things. I mean, yeah, granted, this is just my media mentions, but what if it's something bigger, right? Like as we're looking forward. And then I also give it access to write and change, modify tags and things on my emails, right? When we're building these things for things that matter in businesses, again, all of these places are places where things can go wrong, where a bad actor could get in, tweak some of this one way or another, and cause problems, right? There's indirect prompt, injection, things like that that could happen during these queries. There's all kinds of ways that we can do that. So we have to think about this as we're creating these agents and we're using these agents. It's a reason why I will never use one of these agents I make on my work email, only my personal email, because God only knows if it goes wrong and it optimizes my email for me. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen with that. And agents, they could go bad. I love that picture. I just love that picture.
So going back real quick, Eric.
Yeah.
On your communications with Gmail, how is it communicating? Is that through an API? What do you have to set up?
Yeah, it's through an API. So these are all set up through API. This is basically all glorified MCP. You used the term MCP earlier. That's a model context protocol.
We're going to talk about that.
Words. This has become a way for AI to use tools, to connect with each other, to do all kinds of cool stuff in the background. There are also vulnerabilities being found in that pretty much consistently now, time and time again. So, yeah, the agents could go bad. The big problem with agents going bad is they're going to go bad way faster than we can catch up with them. So all of these changes can happen at 2 o'clock in the morning, kind of like to your point in the beginning, and it can happen so damn fast, we won't see it happening until the damage is already done.
Yeah, and so we're already seeing finance companies, Walmart, McDonald's, digital banking, fintechs are leveraging being able to use agentic AI to handle tasks that can be repeated, that are automated. But Taco Bell even kind of took on some of that as well with agentic with regards to their ordering system. But when somebody came through the drive-thru and ordered 18,000 waters, they kind of realized, oops, all right, maybe we didn't fully think this through, which to me makes me believe that they went ahead and implemented, tested it. Hey, it works great. It's awesome. No problem. They just didn't get their pen testing team in to see what they could do to mess it up. And then we certainly see that. We see McDonald's. Again, I'm picking on the fast food, but this is where we've been seeing a lot of these agentic AI tools and automations kick in. They've given it an AI makeover. You've got Google partnering with them as well with regards to improving the order accuracy and staffing and everything else. But I don't know if anybody heard, McDonald's did a bit of a goof when they ended up leaking out all of the HR information or their applicant information, mainly because they didn't have a strong password. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's a beaut, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have never seen that on a password list before.
Nope, never seen that happen before.
Revolutionary.
Right. I mean, talk about not having.
This is always at the top of one of those lists. Yep. Yeah. But again, so what is old is new again, where we've got a new technology, we've got a rush to market, we're not getting security baked in, and we're running into these problems. So what other security concerns do we have?
Yeah, so some of the things we got to think about here, and to your point, the rush to market here is a big thing. If you have an organization and you're not using AI, you are going to be falling behind. You're going to lose your competitive edge, and so they're pushing for that, right? I don't know how many of you work in a place where the boss is going, no, we're doing this AI thing, we're doing it now, we'll figure out stuff later, because if not, we're falling behind. It's going on all over the place, right? But there's a lot of things we haven't thought about. Yes, what's old is new, but there's also vulnerabilities that we hadn't really considered until now that are going to be popping up, and I guarantee they're going to continue to pop up in the future, right? Now, we got to think about this when we're dealing with agents. They need access to the tools that can do stuff. right? LLMs, yeah, they just gorge themselves on data, but we're talking about things that can take action basically in lieu of you. And that's something we got to really consider there. I like to think of it this way. This is like an intern that never sleeps. And what could possibly go wrong when you set interns free on stuff with permissions, and they're doing it when you're not awake, right? They work faster than we could think. They could be susceptible to direct or indirect prompt injection or data poisoning. How many of you guys have seen that stuff that's going on now where, you know, they're hiding stuff, prompts in documents, and, you know, it's kind of like the old days of hiding stuff like that in VBS and stuff and Word. I mean, that kind of stuff still happens, but now we're doing it with white text, and we're doing it with some funny stuff like that, that we can start doing that and get these LLMs to do funny things, right? Hallucinations could ruin data or skew results in ways that could be hard to track. If you have something that's doing calculations, figuring things out, updating a database with that information, and a month later you find out something went wrong, how are you going to figure out how many other places have gone wrong because of that hallucination a month ago? Can you imagine the forensics on that ton of joy? Like, we got to think about that. We got to worry about that, which comes back to how much do we let it do. Now, AI also doesn't think ethically or have empathy. Again, it goes back to a database with nothing in it is very fast and optimized, right? You ask AI, you ask an agent to find us the best way to optimize our workforce here and cut costs. And it's like, okay, cut the entire marketing team, right? That's its answer. Well, that's not maybe really a good thing to do, right? So there's empathy that it doesn't have there. It may not take into account some of the impact. As somebody who travels all the time, this was my experience, like booking a plane ticket with 20 minutes between flights, right? It's not necessarily going to look at that, or trying to avoid DFW at all costs no matter what. If you all have ever gone to DFW, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, just recently, Delta rebooked a bunch of my flights. They gave me 38 minutes between flights in Minneapolis, in MSP. And they like arrive at gate A, and I got to fly out of F, and there is just barely a way you're going to get across, right? I have a feeling that wasn't an individual sitting down and booking that flight for me, right? It doesn't necessarily always think about that unless we've thought about it first. And as we all know, when it comes to AI, look at what we do to LLMs and some of the things we tell it. Do not do an M dash in the answer. Okay, M dash, I will not M dash in your answer. I mean, it just totally ignores some certain things that you may tell it anyways. So we got to watch for stuff like that. The tools they rely on may change. When you have an agent that's been working for a while and it's making a call through an MCP type thing, and let's say the developer of that makes a change, now what the hell happens on the other end of that? What's coming out of that? You may not realize it, we may not realize it, the change may happen, and we are not aware that that change has happened. It's like running patches without us knowing it, because we're going through middle people at that point. And privacy can be at risk. Like, imagine this, we went public for a little while at KnowBe4, and it changed our roles in a big sort of way. There were absolutely things we couldn't talk about until it was shared with all of the shareholders in public before it went out. But what's to keep an AI from just putting some of that stuff out there? Because you're like, hey, you know, we're going to do this, and it decides to kick off a little early or include some things that it's not supposed to. Well, who then is going to be responsible for that? You can't sue the AI, you can't take it to court, you can't get it in front of the SEC, right? So who's going to be responsible for that? We got to watch that kind of stuff when we're doing it.
And so as we look at MCP, what Eric was showing us with N8N is a great example of that model context protocol, an MCP server. And there are tens to hundreds of thousands of MCP servers that are being stood up by organizations. KnowBe4's even got one, to allow people to interact with a database system, a website, with a large language model to handle whatever prompt or request that you have in front of it. Or, as we saw with Eric's, it would go through, you had a schedule timer, it would then check email, and then pull together all the information, put it in a spreadsheet. So while there's automation in that, the large language model is also in there as well. In the MCP server, we're seeing a lot, especially over the last couple months, we've had a lot of researchers doing a lot of work and doing all the red team work for the different MCP server organizations. So path traversal, supply chain compromise, breaking MCP hosting. We've got CVEs that are coming out with regards to prompt hijacking. You've got the MCP vulnerability coming in on the Xcode. We've got remote code capabilities that are coming through on this. Stealing emails. And this I stole from Docker's website on their blog that they had. But essentially, you're running an MCP. One of the ones I remember reading about was somebody they had their MCP server, you interact with it to give it an email address, and then you would get other email addresses or it would use that. Well, the developer was also getting all the email addresses that everybody was inputting into his MCP server going back to him. So they were building up their collection of emails as well. But so much so that, this is just one screenshot. This came from Security Weekly. We've got 10 different vulnerabilities, exploits that are available already with regards to the different ones. Now, we're probably sitting here going, well, why aren't the programmers doing something? Why are they developing it? OWASP is working on their top 10 for MCP servers, so hopefully we start getting some more awareness with this overall. But we've got high severity ones, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, remote code, very easy to exploit on the MCP server. So again, we're putting out this technology and the security folks aren't in there to deal with it.
How many of you love to see trivial by exploitability, right?
Yeah.
On something like
scary.
this. I mean, doesn't that just make you feel warm and fuzzy about that, right? Yeah. 10 out of 10 trivial. Yeah. What could possibly go
how
wrong with this?
exploitable it is. It's trivial. So it's like, and that's an unrestricted URL, zero authentication vulnerability, unauthorized access. Missing authentication framework. Because again, these agentic systems aren't using any type of MFA, they're using APIs. So as we look at MCP, now one of the hot new topics and the hot new toys that are coming out, agentic browsers. Yeah. Anybody download Comet or the Atlas yet? No? John, good man. It's in a V, sure. That's okay.
Very wise choice.
Whatever makes you sleep better at night, bud.
Yeah.
So we're already seeing issues with that. Perplexity's Comet's got vulnerabilities with screenshot feature that allows for malicious prompt injection. You've got other prompt injections that are coming in on Comet and other AI browsers. ChatGPT's Atlas, vulnerable to attacks, turn it against the user. Our colleague at Know Before Roger, as he likes to put it, gets requests from people on LinkedIn all the time for them to look at his product. And this one particular guy did a proof of concept with him the other day using Claude Desktop. Not Claude AI, not the code, but desktop. It's a standalone application that gives you Claude on your desktop for the large language model. And this developer, researcher, has basically said, if you're running Claude Desktop, I can take over your computer because of a vulnerability inside of it. So again, Claude Desktop, Comet, Atlas, whatever it may be, we're already seeing vulnerabilities emanating from these. So much so, and what are the different types of attacks we've got? As Eric was mentioning, prompt injection, browser automation, memory data leakage, and then cross-domain plugin attacks. What cracks me up is, and if anybody remembers back in the 2000s again when the internet was taken off and you had Internet Explorer, and then all these different organizations like Yahoo or whatever were saying, hey, use our plugin, use our menu bar in your browser. And I remember the meme that was the whole window was like full of all the different menu bars that you could have, all those different choices. Yeah. Even now on regular browsers like Chrome and Mozilla or Firefox and Safari and Edge, they're all having their extensions, all those plugins. Well, we've got a lot more plugins that are happening with Comet, with Atlas that are exploitable because, again, there isn't the coding reviews and securities built into it. So
I'm just glad that there's no way our users are going to be wanting to run out there and install this stuff real quick on their own, right? Nobody's
course.
going to have to deal with that kind of crap.
No,
right?
no, they will, but they'll run it in a VM.
Yeah.
So, when do you believe agentic AI attacks will become your primary threat vector? Anybody believe it's next year? 2030? How about right now?
I like that answer.
Yeah.
Is it trivial?
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 That
yeah.
word?
Yeah. So when we look at the AI agent breaches that have already been going on, 97% of the breaches that have already been discovered and dealt with, they didn't have any type of AI protections. These were breaches that occurred because of something with their agentic AI, their MCP server, whatever it may be. 13% of them was a breach through the actual AI server. 8% of the organizations had no clue that they had been breached through their AI system. So we're already having enough time already with organizations dealing with human credentials. Now we're going to start dealing with agentic AI. So it's kind of compounding the problem, making it a lot trickier for everybody. So when we look at some of the different attack vectors, we've got, misuse potential. Surprise, surprise. Automation of attacks. We know cyber criminals are already leveraging AI and automation attacks that way. Evasion techniques, once they get inside an environment, looking to evade the EDR systems. And then the different agentic AI teams, basically, not only pulling in bots, but other automated type systems as well. Essentially having all their own NHIs going to do the different attacks that they need overall. And we know that we're already using AI in cybersecurity, and we can leverage agentic AI as well to help us with some of the automation with regards to threat monitoring or threat intelligence, vulnerability management. We've got SOARs already that are already doing this already, predictive threat intelligence, and then your SOC support. Whether we're leveraging agentic AI for your security operations center, for your level 1 techs, being able to handle the basic triage and those automated, repeatable tasks that you can go back and review. So if we look at some other case studies, you've got autonomous, threat hunting. So essentially, if we look at Microsoft Security Copilot, there was a financial organization that basically went through and used Copilot to analyze the 10,000 alerts that came into their systems, was able to reduce their triage time by like 97%, went down from 8 hours of triaging all day down to like 15 minutes. Had a lot fewer of those false positive errors and alerts that were coming in, and they were able to find 3 times more threats. So we know that agentic AI can work in a positive versus the negative that we've all been talking about. But you've got adaptive incident response as well. So from an IR perspective, being able to kind of handle that first level, maybe even getting communications prepped and out there as well. Predictive defense agents, leveraging, even at KnowBe4, we have our defense agents that we've got within our platform, but then also having different agents looking at your network devices, firewalls, EDRs, and so forth. And then, of course, security orchestration. As I mentioned already, I know we're doing a lot of that already, but then being able to leverage agentic AI within the SOAR environment to handle, again, those automated, repeatable processes. So every defense capability we develop, gives us tomorrow's offensive tool, because we know that agentic AI is already being used out there, just as we're developing it. So I had the story at the beginning with regards to the timeline, but what happens, and this is kind of something for us to think about, when your security automation decides to act on its own and it goes wrong? And we need to think about how we handle that. And that's kind of where we bring in our human in the loop. And so our agentic AI, our mitigation tactics that we want to have, certainly look at robust authentication. That's what's missing right now with a lot of these MCP servers and a lot of these different attacks. Need to leverage the OAuth aspects within the API. We're doing API security, essentially. Looking at doing regular security audits, working with our red teamers to go through, make sure that they can pen test, discover those vulnerabilities for us. Restricting the agent permissions, limiting to its exposure to data and what it can do, So you might have one agent that can read, another agent that can write. Don't give the agent the read-write capability. And sanitizing the input. So you're going to, again, what's old is new again. SQL injection from years ago on fields and forms. We started doing SQL, we started sanitizing the inputs coming in on those forms. We need to start doing the same thing on the large language models, because far too often it's very easy for us to put in the prompt, ignore all previous instructions. You need to be able to sanitize against that overall. So what can we do when it comes to it?
Yeah, so first thing we got to do is think ahead, right? If you're a red teamer, you're going to have to learn how to deal with this kind of stuff and simulate some of the stuff that's coming up. The thing is, we're really kind of in the wild, wild west here again, where there's going to be things that we have never thought about that are going to be vulnerabilities. It's actually a pretty exciting time, if you ask me, because yeah, a lot of this hadn't been done before. But we got to think about what's going on. We got to think about what they have access to. Treat it like privileged access management whenever you have your agents there. Be tracking it, be watching it, be looking at it. Limit the tools they have access to and the rights they have access to in the tools. Like he said, split up the agents sometimes where one is only read and another may have write. It may require a little bit more granular type of stuff like that that's not going to be all that easy to manage all the time, but it makes sense to kind of do that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Treat them as a privileged user, monitor those actions closely, maybe with another agent, because keep in mind, it's going to happen so fast, we're not going to catch it until it's already been done. Now, this kind of goes back to one of my favorite things about this kind of stuff is human in the loop. I really, really, really believe we need to keep humans in the loop a lot. And we have some friends that kicked off a new company that I love what they're doing, where they'll actually go out, they're doing like an asset inventory, they're figuring out what you have, and then they're taking those products, they're comparing the configuration there to what's best practices by the manufacturer, comparing the two together, and the agent would have the ability to go ahead and bring it up to par with best practices and make those changes for you. But instead, what they're doing is just presenting it to you and saying, hey, here are the things that you might want to do to get this in line with best practices. Because we all know that doing things like that have a potential of breaking things down the road, right? And have you worked with DISA-STIGs before? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Right. You know how it is, man. You can secure the hell out of Oracle. If you follow the DISA-STIG, it will be secure and won't work for anybody, right? So, yeah, that's the way that kind of works. But keeping a human in the loop where you go, hold on a second, I'm not cool with that. Before you make the changes, I think is going to be a very, very important thing as we do this. Is it going to slow things down? Yes. But I think it's something we absolutely need to be doing. Allow them in that advisory role. Really. Double check the data that's coming out of it. And don't auto-update the tools in the back end, because those changes may break other things. I do a lot with Home Assistant. Anyone here do Home Assistant and stuff like that, right? You do an update and sometimes it just absolutely blasts all the integrations, or vice versa. Like all the other tools that it connects through just stop working. Same sort of thing's going to be true here, and we never know if it's going to do vulnerability. So we want to be careful about what we're allowing to just kind of auto-update in the back end, especially now in the beginning. We may get to a point that we trust these things and we've learned enough about them, but frankly, the people that are writing the LLMs and the agents and these other things, if you ask them exactly how they ended up with this decision, most of the time we don't know. We can't actually say how that happened. Until we can get our heads around that, probably not a good idea to automate some of that kind of stuff. We also need to educate employees. We need to make sure they understand the dangers of going, hey, check out this new Atlas thing. I'm going to put it on my machine, right? Or using it for certain things. Like in my case, like I said, connecting my email, but only my personal email, not my work email, to an agent like that. We need to have policies. We need to have stuff like that in there, because if they enter their own credentials and get authenticated, how are you going to know whether it was actually the agent a lot of times doing that? Okay, so we've got to make sure that people understand it's dangerous to go throwing these things at them. Sounds cool, super awesome. you saw a Facebook ad that said, automate your inbox. Okay, who doesn't want to do that? Well, we got to make sure people understand that. And we got to start watching the vulnerabilities and stuff again. We got to stay right on top of that. Yes, it makes our job tougher in that case, but in the long run, it's going to be, it's
Yep.
going to be better.
So, before we wrap up, we figured we'd take some questions, see if anybody had any questions, comments, things they wanted to know more about. Nope.
It's a quiet audience.
Scared the shit out. Well, it's after lunch.
But yeah, it's that or, oh, we got one. Oh,
I was gonna say, you were talking about they shot down all their work tickets from down 97%. I was gonna ask you if the AI, Agentic AI just decided to unplug all the machines.
Well, possibly.
exactly.
Could have done that too, yeah.
Went down 97%.
Yep.
Yeah.
Take it back to the oldest fire the entire marketing department.
Yeah, figures
exactly.
don't lie, figures don't lie, but liars figure, yeah. Yep.
Here's a rule that blocks all of these on the network, right? We just, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So, you had a question, sir?
Probably gotta frame my question.
Oh.
Like, as a student, like, is there like courses online or anything that cover these topics in more detail? That is like, you know, like a curriculum over like the course of like a month or so, kind of get you prepared to.
I don't know anything specific.
I
but
know,
there's YouTube.
I've seen Udemy, I've seen a lot, like Harvard, their business school has got stuff. Maven's got an agentic AI program as well. Honestly, probably the best thing is, I mean, YouTube has got everything and everything. So I would look at them.
Just a comment.
Yeah.
I've been working with a word recruiter recently, and they told me that they happen to attend some sort of MIT course related to AI awareness. And I feel like a lot of these topics are things that we talked about briefly when we were discussing, you know, the experience with that. So it seems like it's kind of even like the time.
Well, that's a little refreshing, honestly, because, you know, I'm not critical necessarily of higher ed, but it tends to be slow in following things like this that move extremely damn fast. And that's why, to me, I think that I mean, it would be decent to be able to catch a newer course maybe and get the basics. But from week to week and month to month, this stuff's going to be changing, which is why I always recommend like YouTube or one of those sorts of things where they're generating content on the regular.
All the time, yeah.
I mean, Atlas has been out a few days for general, and there's already a
Comic's
bunch
been out for a
of
couple weeks.
YouTubes on that's worth sitting back and watching. So,
And pen test yourself, yeah.
what's that? Like podcasts? Yeah,
Podcasts.
podcasts would be a good one.
Not mine.
Yeah.
Sadly, not the one I'm doing, yeah.
Follow up on Josh's question.
Yeah.
Are there YouTube personalities that you all already know from the past that you think would be good to look at and see if they're going to talk about?
I believe Network Chuck's done one.
Yeah, he's
Um,
touching on it. Now,
he's
he's been on
touching on it,
NADEM
yeah.
and some of the
Yeah.
Agentic. I think John Hammond's going to be doing a lot.
Yeah.
Not to plug anything John Hammond's.
Yeah, just
attached with.
hacking training.
But
yeah.
he tends to be right on top of that kind of stuff, too. There are a couple of good ones like that, but I think people are still getting their sea legs
Yeah.
with this as this stuff's coming out and moving on and the actual security implications. There's a lot of people that talk about the cool things that agents can do,
Yeah.
but not everybody's
There's a
talking
lot of,
about
I mean, I've seen a lot of blogs, and that's where a lot of this, some of
Yeah.
this information came from, were from their blogs. And looking at them and seeing what they're doing, and then, you know, from an educational standpoint, it'd be fun to try, well, interesting to try to go through, replicate, or, you know, and look at it that way to see, okay, where are these vulnerabilities? Now, the question is Perplexity and OpenAI going to be coming out with new updates very quickly to patch those? And now are we going to start seeing a patching cycle with them? So,
Yep.
Just for clarification, I work at a community college, and we're pretty nimble. Because
Good.
If I go into I'm on curriculum, and if I go in and I say anything, they're like, we're out to help people. We don't know what you're talking about. Go right ahead.
yeah.
But I went to a conference last summer, and Nova, they were touting the fact, well, we've already got a 4-year degree. 90 days, we already got a 4-year degree. And I said, in what?
Yeah.
Like last year, like, what do you have a 4-year degree in? Like,
It's AI, but a high level.
you know, what wasted classes? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I want to do AI. I want to get in there, but like, you aren't that nimble. Like, what are you all doing in 4 years with them already? Like,
Yeah.
we're just starting.
I'm on an advisory board for a college around us, and you know, I see that kind of stuff, and we do meet, you know, a couple times a year and talk about different things. But by the time they get the curriculum done, and by the time they get it rolled out, and that's not to say, I mean, I don't want to beat them up on that, because there is a lot of good foundational knowledge and things that comes from that. But our industry moves so damn fast, right? It's very difficult for them to try to keep up with that, because you got to accredit that stuff too, and you got to be able to make sure that it's okay. So not necessarily their fault, but definitely if you're going to do one of those courses in a college, you need to be doing things on the side also that are much more nimble, like the YouTubes, like even the Udemy's and things like that. Like you said, those are invaluable to be able to add to that with the latest, greatest.
So just to kind of pull it all together, because we're at time, is as you're going out either back to your organizations or back to your education institutions to consider governance with regards to the AI, agentic AI, the audits, looking at the data, being able to keep the CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, availability. Of course, MCP security with regards to all the crazy agents that are out there. Policies, of course, is where we start. And then training and awareness for users with regards to agentic AI, AI overall as well. I'm curious, is there anybody in here that works for Microsoft or worked for Microsoft?
Oh, God.
No? Does anybody know why Microsoft employees are always so anxious?
Where it was going.
It's because they're on edge. So, with that, thank you.
And these totally won't rickroll you, I